Hey all. I hope that you are all making the most of the Gemini full moon. Our moon is full in Gemini in just a few hours at this point, my time anyway. And this reading, first of all, is going to be for the collective, for any and all signs. And then we'll see how long these messages take, and we might get clarifiers for each of the signs. Get a clarifier for each of the signs, so that we can get a little more specific in how the collective's messages apply for each specific zodiac sign. But we will just see. We'll see how much time we have. First of all, I want to move through some messages that I received for us prior to working with the cards, which I do not normally do in our lunar pools. That's why I've been away from the lunar pools for about a week now, because they're going to just be slightly different in this way, because a lot of things are coming through for us, and I'm ready to share those messages that come through for me without the cards before recording. So, first and foremost, we're talking about contrast, and what came through was a moment of elation. And when I feel elated, it feels like light energy for me, and for many, I'm sure, for many of us at least. And when I allow myself to enjoy what I've been doing in my life and what I know I will do, I come to this full realization of elation. Or rather, what I mean to say is I'm at one with that emotion because I'm experiencing it fully, right? And in those moments of elation, in this recent one that I was led to for these messages, I'm so aware that I am light energy, especially as I am one with elation. I'm very aware of that, whereas I'm very caught up in it. I found myself very caught up in it, whereas normally I try to maintain that balance, right? Where we know contrast is necessary. We know both dark and light are necessary. That is what life is made up of, is equal parts both, right? That dark is not bad and light is not good. That's not an equivalent, right? But in that moment of elation, I am so aware that I am light energy, and that elation is light energy, and it is so easy to get caught up in. And in this recent one that I found myself in, I lingered there longer than I normally do, and was just caught up in the fact that my whole life is light energy. That's what it felt like in that moment of elation, that my love, my happiness, and my life are this white light, this bright white light energy. And that brilliance, my own, is so euphoric that one can simply wish to stay there. I can, you can, we can simply wish to stay there, and for that to be all that there is, for that to be what remains. And like I said, in this recent experience that I was led to in order to receive these messages, I lingered there longer than I normally would, and suddenly then it hit me, and it sort of came back to me, like my faculties came back to me. I remembered that without contrast, the contrast of my past, the darkness around me, I wouldn't be able to see or know or appreciate that brilliance that I was so drawn into. Excuse me while I look over notes, because I channeled a lot for us, and I just want to stay on course with what came through. So I wouldn't be able to see the form of my light, the form that it takes. I would still be it, but I wouldn't be able to see it to, as I said, realize it without that contrast, right? The contrast brings the light to life in a way. It allows us to know and appreciate ourselves and our journeys, right? So all of that came flooding back to me, as if to say, this is a time where, because we're all receiving so many blessings, so much good fortune, so many reversals of fortune, so much good luck, it's a time when it will be easy to get caught up in the light, in that bright white light energy, in the elation, the happiness, the love, the abundance. Not as if getting caught up in it is a bad thing, but only if it causes us to forget how necessary contrast is to life. It is the duality of the two of them that creates life, that allows for life, that allows us to be in form and to observe our brilliance. And so without it, in being void of the contrast, the darkness, we are just as void of life as we would be if we had only darkness and were void of light, right? We need both for life and to appreciate what we are. So I think it's just a time when a lot of us are going to get caught up in all of the brilliance and all of the elation, and that must be why that came through, and in that way, right? Like a signal that, like, we're going to just forget and need reminded of this. Now, and then something else a little more specific about contrast that came through is that sometimes the darkness around us takes the shape of ignorance. It looks like ignorance. It comes in the form of ignorance. Sometimes masses of ignorance around you, right? Mob mentalities and the like. And it is often populations, cultures, societies, cliques, and other groups born, made, and or maintained out of its individual members' fears of not being accepted, loved, validated, etc., right? Now, some of these people, these groups, even seem literally more desperate for outside approval than food, water, or even air. I mean, I've witnessed it. I've been around it. I've been irritated by it. I've been someone who didn't understand it. And we need to ask why those individuals, those groups are that desperate for validation and for approval. Inspect it with curiosity and inspect it logically. A couple of these messages are really asking us to look at things logically, not necessarily emotionally. Because emotionally, if we look at it emotionally, why are there mob mentalities? Why are people so desperate for this approval and acceptance that they're not even paying attention to what they're signing on for because they're just scared to not be part of something? Though the emotions, or looking at it emotionally, may make it seem very discouraging, very disappointing, very strange, childish even, certainly annoying to some of us at least, if not downright defeating and insurmountable, right? Again, we need to inspect it with criticism, or I'm sorry, with curiosity, not criticism, right? I'm sorry, I'm so in my notes. I'll get better at this. But for example, and this is the point here, for example, many of these groups are made up of individuals who haven't been here for some time. They simply haven't incarnated in quite a while. The last time they incarnated here, approval and acceptance and living with a group, hunting and sleeping within a group, actually may have been exactly as important as food and water and air was to their survival. And food and water and air are still critical to their survival. So those instincts are still correct, right? So why would we judge them for harboring and honoring other instincts that were also true the last time they incarnated here? It's something to consider. And even if you don't believe in reincarnation, or you don't believe there's a way to know when people reincarnated or incarnated last. All you have to leave room for, hold space for there, is the fact that you don't know for sure either, right? Maybe I don't know for sure and they don't know for sure, and maybe no one knows for sure. But all you have to leave space for is just that your truth is not their truth is not your truth, and or that you don't know for certain that that isn't the way that it works, that they didn't incarnate here before, but just so long ago that their instincts are outdated to some extent, right? Are you know, coming from that place of having lived when being part of a group and having that approval really was key to their survival. So yeah, again, just leave space for not knowing for sure, for not having the same truth as someone else does. Other times though, another message in connection to the contrast, other times the contrast, the darkness, is actually within you, behind you, rather than around us, right? So often it's our memories, our history, or even our present attitude that presents that contrast for us. Presents that darkness that offsets those moments of elation and light. And in doing so, it's helping us to identify and eventually identify with that bright light energy, right? It's helping us to realize and know that we are exactly what we think of as where we would like to be. We are what we think of as where we would like to be. We want to be in that light, right? But we are it. We are it. And so even when that darkness, that contrast is within you, in your mind, in your memories, in your past, in your attitude, it is still acting as the contrast that allows your brilliance to be realized from your point of view, at least, right? And as that light, you're brilliant. And as you shine by illuminating ignorance around you, seeking clarity about your past and your struggles, lightening your own load and others' loads, you are a warrior by understanding and so commanding that darkness. The way that contrast works in your life, looks in your life, is managed, is handled, is felt. And sometimes we're talking about a darkness that can't remain, can't continue to act as a contrast. As we said, contrast is necessary, but sometimes we know a darkness that is false, is toxic, that seeks to destroy us in some sense, in some way. Whether that means someone has abused us, or that we can't forgive ourselves for something, or that we have an addiction of sorts that's draining us, draining our life force, or whatever it means, however it looks specifically. Regardless, in those instances where the darkness is so dark it cannot remain, we have to shine so brightly that we kill that darkness. We are literally killing it. So the next time that we're battling a darkness, a necessary contrast that is in our own minds, that's in our past, our attitude, our habits, and we're battling with mantras, with affirmations, with positive self-talk, we want to remember these messages. The divine wants us to remember that the lines, I'm smart, I'm strong, I'm doing a great job, might sound and feel like complete bull to us because those lines fall short, because deep down we know that we are brilliant warriors and we're fucking killing it, you know? That hit me so hard that sometimes, you know, we don't give ourselves enough credit. It was quite profound for me that you can fall short in that positive self-talk, in those affirmations, in those mantras. Positive self-talk is nice, but honest self-talk works. And if the truth is that you are a brilliant warrior and you're killing it, then that's what you need to say to yourself. That's what you need to be reminded of on a daily basis. And it's hard to see, in closing these messages, it's hard to keep in perspective, because we do indeed need the contrast to see it, as we said at the opening of this, right? Often we don't want to look at a painful past, devastating memories, the battles that we lost or barely won, the reasons that we hold hateful opinions of ourselves, because it hurts. And we know this. This is so much of what all the messages are about here, is what I'm about to say, because we know that already, right? We know that. It's common sense. Consciously, we're aware of that. Yes, it hurts to look at things that are painful. Hurt, pain, you're talking about synonyms. Obviously, it hurts to look at things that are painful, right? But it's so sneaky. It's so very sneaky. Because when it hurts, it can feel like the opposite of that elation that we were talking about, that we like so well. And so it may even seem counterintuitive. And that is the way in which it can be so very, very, very sneaky. And we start this habit and this rationalization of turning away from the contrast that might actually allow you, us all, to witness our brilliance, our radiance, right? The past that lets us see how much we've grown, the battles that prove our resilience, the brutality that has proven that we are survivors. This is what we are talking about, a path of truth leading to light, littered with shadows. That's what we're talking about. You can move through them, those shadows. It is an inevitable part of that walk, that truth walk. But you will have to feel, listen, accept guidance, and trust yourself when it is time to move through the darkest parts of that path, when you cannot see where you are stepping at all. We follow the light in those times because it outlines those mysterious black patches, maybe even giving it a shape that we can then recognize. Just how the contrast can offset the light, right? So when you look at it that way, it's quite logical, not emotional. This is logical, not emotional. That came through very clearly. And fear is the only death here on that path of truth leading to light, littered with shadows. Avoid fear, not the shadows, just the fear. And again, we know this, but it can be so sneaky, and this is a time that we need to be reminded of all of these things. Again, it's asking us to look at this logically, not emotionally. Now, that said, I have to put a disclaimer here. We're almost 20 minutes in, but this has to be said. It has to be repeated, actually. I said it earlier. I am not saying that light is good and dark is bad, and light is beneficial and dark is something to battle. That I am not saying that. Dark is not all good or bad. Light is not all good or bad. Life is made up of the duality of both. It literally creates it, allows it to take shape and form. So by no means is that what I'm preaching, that you should logically choose the light over the dark. You can't go on without either, right? And we know this again. So if that's what you're receiving from the message, then either maybe listen again, or go ahead and just feel like maybe it's not for you. If you listen again and that is all that you seem to be able to receive from the message, then it must not be for you, because that is not the point. And I hope that's clear. And then finally, I said in closing already, but finally, the last point that came through is that as you're on this path of truth and you're looking to the light and you're moving through the shadows, right? It's littered with shadows. Outside influences, people around you may see that you are seeking guidance, that you are listening to guidance. As I said, you're going to have to listen. You're going to have to feel your way through. You're going to have to accept guidance and trust yourself. And they will sense and see and know that vibration of seeking guidance, listening to guidance, looking for guidance. And they may, some of them, try to fill that spot that you have open. Not that you're inviting, new wisdom in, as far as, please tell me how to live my life just because you're in it, or you're next to me, or you see me doing it. Not that you're inviting that type of like a life coach into your life who you haven't hired and aren't paying, right? But they will see that and they will sort of attack that hole, attack that void, attack that energy, because they want and need to tell you how to live your life. And so you'll find this uninvited criticism sometimes, but uninvited advice a lot of times, even if it reads as advice. And what came through is that some people need to be telling someone else, anyone else, how to live, because they need to ignore and forget that they don't know. If they're busy telling you how to live, it's really super easy to forget that they don't actually know. They're sitting there constantly affirming to the both of you that they have the answers, that they know the way, that you should do it like this. That's how they forget and deal with the fact that they don't know how to live their lives. And we know this. This is known, because if they did, they wouldn't be trying to tell you. If they really knew how to live their lives, they really knew how to be alive, not just in existence, then they would be living their life. Then they would be aware that no one could possibly have told them how to live their life. They wouldn't be wasting their time trying to tell someone else, right? Again, things that on some level at least we know, but this is a time where we need to be reminded of these things. The 4 of Fire and the Ace of Water came through for us while we were talking about these messages. The World card and the Knight of Fire. This is the Game of Thrones Tarot, by the way. Information on decks is always below in the description. Bottom of the deck, the Chariot card. So these messages that have come through for the collective, these are things that help you move toward the light. I knew the Sun card would come out. I was surprised it didn't fall out while I was talking. Move toward the light, but do so in an unapologetic, very energetic, fierce, confident, immovable manner. Of course, you move forward on that path, but no one can move you off of it. Rejecting, not just resisting, but rejecting those things that would serve to stop you, to deter you, to set you on a different course. These things are knowing, owning, staying mindful of these things is something that can help us have a new emotional beginning in our home and or family life. If there's something unstable in your living environment, in your family environment, in your perhaps partnership, but probably within a group or a place that feels like a home to you. If there's something unstable there, something unbalanced, these are the key points at this time, here as we near the end of 2019, that can help a lot of us have a new emotional beginning there. Form a partnership for some of you. Find a home for some of you. Invite a birth into said home for others of you. Now, inviting in this new emotional beginning, creating it really. What you're doing is you're creating it. You're creating it by opening up to these truths, opening up to different angles of them, opening up to the fact that if as I went over them, you thought, yeah, I already know that. Yeah, I already know that. Yeah, I already know that. You may be opening up to the fact that there is something about at least one of those points that you have not considered or enjoyed, an angle from which you have not seen it, some way that you can apply it to your life that you haven't entertained before, right? And opening up to someone else for a lot of you, being open to these truths that have come through for you, open to seeing them from different angles, seeing where you have had a limited perspective of them in the past, right? But also opening up to someone else, perhaps a potential partner or someone who you're already partnered with in your home. Now that might mean romantically, but not necessarily, right? But it is a major completion as we create this new beginning, as we invite this new emotional beginning in by opening up. We create it by opening up to new truths, to new levels of intimacy with certain individuals in our inner circle, in our home, in our family, or our family-like groups, right? We secure a major life completion, the completion of a life stage. We close a chapter in our life by doing this. For a lot of you, it's because when you realize how to create a new emotional beginning, it becomes very real for you that you can control your emotions, that you can dictate them, that while you absolutely want them to inform you, you get to decide which ones you allow yourself to immerse yourself in, to feel fully, to experience fully, and which ones you choose to cut short because they're unproductive or uninformed, right? That almost returns me back to the idea that this is a set of messages that is really asking us to think from our logical mind rather than from our emotional space. That's why those two words just came through. Sometimes we cut certain emotions short when we know they're unproductive or uninformed, right? Speaking about it logically. And this major completion for some of you has to do with a fire sign energy, specifically Aries, Sagittarius, or Leo, whether we're talking about a specific part of you in your chart or someone who's around you and influencing this home, this new emotional beginning, this completion, right? But I think for most of us, it certainly has to do with speeding toward our own enlightenment, feeling like being and embodying even mystic energy, speeding toward enlightenment. And for a lot of us, it has to do with kindred spirits, like-minded individuals, welcoming them in, inviting them in, calling and drawing them in, magnetizing them to us because we are vibrating in their same frequency, because we're on their level. And I can sense that a lot of you are feeling like you are ready for and need that type of support, or more of that type of support in your life. Not anyone who would deter you from this path, from this authenticity, from this happiness, this brilliance, this radiance, this realization of one's own greatness, this determination, this youthful energy surging through you, whether you're young or don't consider yourself to be anymore, or, you know, or whatever your age and energy normally is. Not anyone who would argue with that progress. Not anyone who would seek to tell you how to live your life when you're clearly killing it. Right? But like-minded individuals, kindred spirits, people who have been thinking about and studying about the same things that you are, or ideas that are akin to the ones that are circulating in your mind, right? They have the same motivated, excited, enthusiastic, innovative energy. This all has very much to do with you earning, again, creating your own independence, physical independence in some sense, so specifically financial for some of you, yeah. And it's also what you need to hear and to be processing and be mulling over while you're being patient and waiting for all of this to come to fruition, waiting for those shadows to appear on the path for some of you, waiting for the light at the end of the path to appear for some of you, waiting to realize that you're already on that path of truth for some of you, or just waiting for the next event that is going to propel you along your way, some of you. There is this need for patience and a time of really of preparation for a lot of you. You are very, very near to this major completion of a major chapter, major life cycle. You are. And if it feels stagnant at all, then I believe that's definitely because you're to be processing and mulling over a lot of the messages that came through for us. So that is what we see for the collective at this Gemini full moon. Again, I truly hope that you're all making the very most of this energy, setting intentions, doing moon magic, helping, allowing the energy of the full moon to help you finalize, complete projects big and small, whatever making the most of the full moon, the gem full moon, it means to you. And with that, I think we will close our lunar pool for the collective for the gem full moon. It took a lot longer than I thought to get through those messages, so we don't exactly have time to pull individual cards for each of the signs, but I may come right back and do a second video for the full moon where I do give information for each of the individual signs. And if not, then we'll do that right after the full moon. We'll do post readings. I love you.